Hello, everyone. A lovely, happy holiday season to you all this week. This is our last webinar of 2020. We've got a special treat for you today. My name is AJ Kuftic. I'm Principal Technologist with Expedient. Today, we're going to have a very cloudy Christmas carol. But real quick housekeeping note. Please enter all questions down here, about right here in the Q&A panel. That helps us keep track of the questions and make sure that they get answered. If you ask a question, you're entering a prize. That prize this week is an Ember Smart Mug. It's currently snowing outside my window, very cold outside, so let's keep those beverages warm for the next few months. And as we go forward, this is all being recorded. So if you miss something, step away. You want to send this to your friends and coworkers, maybe even family members. You'll get a link in your email. This will also be on our website at go.expedient.com/webinar replays. It'll also be on our YouTube page, youtube.com/expedient, and on our Instagram page, instagram.com/_expedient. For those of you who are new to Expedient, I know there's a few out there who have been here for all of these webinars, but for those of you who are new to Expedient, we were founded in 2001. We started in co-location, moved into managed services, and are now in cloud. We have cloud locations in US East, Central, and West. Our West region just opened at the end of 2019. It's just past its first birthday. We have international cloud deployments on customer sites in Australia, Germany, and Canada. So if our cloud locations don't work, we can bring that cloud to you, and that applies domestically as well. We're a VMware cloud provider and have been since the program's inception in 2007. We have tens of thousands of virtual machines on our platform, so we're able to run VMware solutions at scale for both ourselves and for you. But I really need to do something real fast here to set the mood for this. It's more of a Christmas carol. And let's talk through our friend Ebenezer Klooge. Ebenezer Klooge is a stingy man. He's stingy with resources and he's stingy with his time. And a lot of this comes from his desire to have deep control over his environment. He loves his servers inside of his data center. He loves having this full level of intricate flexibility that he thinks he has by owning every piece of the stack. And every time the business comes to him, he says, no, we don't have time for that. No, we don't have the resources for that. And that's largely due to an effort of his own making. Everything he's done has been cobbled together and strained. All of these resources are at their very brink because adding new resources isn't easy. Adding new resources is capital, and he doesn't want to spend it. He wants to show that he can do everything as cheaply as possible. He'll take advantage of maybe some open source projects that maybe don't have any support behind them. He'll take old servers. He'll find pieces of hardware and use them as long as he possibly can to try and stretch every last little penny that he has in his infrastructure. And because of this, it causes him to do a ton of maintenance. There's always something failing. There's always something that needs to be updated. There's always something that needs to be changed. And as such, every weekend, there's some work to be done. Every night of the week, there's some sort of work to be done. And so he really only allows off for holidays. The problem is that in his mind, holidays are the best day because no one's in the office, which means that he can get the most work done. But as time goes on, Ebenezer has reached sort of the end of his rope. And one day he goes home and he goes to sleep. And that night, he receives a visit and a warning. A warning from two of his former coworkers. Those coworkers come to tell Ebenezer that unless he changes, things will go very bad for him. He doesn't believe them. He says, why should I change? I have my own data center. I have my own pieces of the puzzle. I know everything that goes into it. I have control over every piece. How could that possibly go wrong? They said, we thought the same thing as well. And it turns out that everything we've tried to do has locked us into patching windows. They've locked us into change windows. They've kept us from being able to modernize. We can't escape it. No matter what we do, no matter how many times the business says we have to modernize and we have to change, we just can't escape the maintenance. We can't get away from it. Ebenezer says, no. My environment is perfect. My environment is exactly where the business needs it to be. And his coworkers say, Ebenezer, you don't understand. We have deep regrets about not trying to fix things earlier. We have deep regrets about not making changes when we needed to. And it was only until it was too late that we ever decided to make them. Ebenezer brushes them off and they vanish. He goes back to sleep. The next day, he goes into the office and starts looking at a 2021 calendar. Starts planning out all of his hardware refreshes. He plans out all of his changes. He plans out all of his patching, all of the planned work that he has set for the next year. He knows it all right now because it never changes. At night, he goes home and he falls asleep. And in the night, he's visited by a childlike apparition, the ghost of Cloud Past. And the ghost of Cloud Past takes him back in time, back 10 years ago, where he sees himself sitting with a server on a desk, and he sees a smile on his face. And he says, what's he so happy for? The ghost of Cloud Past says, he just saw his first vMotion. He saw what the technology was capable of helping him with. He saw what the technology could actually do. He says, why? It's a vMotion. Of course it does that. At the time, no one had ever seen that, the ghost said. And this enabled new opportunities. That smile on your face was you realizing what this could do for your maintenance, what time this could free up. At the time, you had racks and racks of physical servers. Racks of physical servers that needed to be replaced, that needed to be maintained, that would have hardware failures on a regular basis. And with this technology, you were able to escape all of that. You were able to move forward. You were able to consolidate all of these workloads onto a smaller number of physical servers. This was a massive win for you and your business because you saw a modern world. Of course I did. Everybody could see that. Anybody could see that looking at that technology. But then you became consumed by it. You became consumed with the control that you now had. You could move workloads wherever you wanted to, but you couldn't see past that. You were so busy focusing on the control that it started to corrupt you, and it turned you into who you are today. Scrooge said, what change do you see? The ghost says, look in the mirror. You're constantly worried about what is the next patch, what is the next firmware update, and never thinking further ahead. That has to change. Scrooge brushes the ghost off and goes back to sleep. The next day he wakes up and goes into a meeting. And in that meeting, the business says, we want to modernize. We have paper ordering right now. We have to modernize our application. We have to build a new retail application. And Scrooge says, that would take months to build. We would have to go build all new VMs, find databases. We would have to build and buy all of this licensing. It's impossible. We can't do that in the timeline you're giving me. You want this in weeks? Both parties leave the meeting dejected. They leave saying, why do we even do this with each other? And Scrooge goes home. And that night when he falls asleep, he's visited by another ghost, the ghost of Cloud Present. The ghost of Cloud Present is a very large and gregarious ghost who seems very happy all the time. Scrooge wonders what could possibly be wrong with him. The ghost takes Scrooge to a conference. Scrooge hasn't been to a conference in a decade, since the last time he saw the first V-motion. He hasn't seen anything new in years because he's been so focused on what he needs to do just to get through the day. And the ghost of Cloud Present says, look at all these people. Look at what they're doing. Scrooge says, why aren't they staring at a management console? Scrooge says, because they're looking at code editors. They're automating. Well, how do they have time to automate? Scrooge says. Don't they have to patch things? Don't they have to maintain things? The ghost says, they automated their patching. They automated their changes. They brought in modern configuration management. They don't have to think about that anymore. What do you mean they don't have to think about it? Everybody has to think about this. This is how infrastructure works. The ghost says things have changed. Everybody saw what virtualization could do, and they took that time and made things better. They started to collaborate together across development and infrastructure. Scrooge says, developers? Those are evil people who try to ruin my infrastructure. The ghost says, that's changed. Developers and infrastructure work together now. You need to change that. Why should I change? My infrastructure is perfect. And the ghost shakes his head and takes Scrooge to his own board meeting, where the board members are talking about how they have to modernize because the business is on the brink of failure. They can't keep up with their competitors. They can't keep up with what the competition and what the rest of the industry is doing because they're being hamstrung by their legacy applications. They're hamstrung by the amount of time that they spend just caring and feeding for them. And Scrooge hears that without change, the business is going to fail. They won't be able to keep up. Their sales will diminish even further than they already have, and it'll be over. Scrooge waves off the ghost and says, no, that won't happen. And he falls back asleep. The next day, he wakes up and he starts preparing for staffing. He starts preparing job descriptions because he's trying to hire additional people to help with all of the patching that he has to do. He wants to bring in bodies to try to fix the problem. Scrooge goes home that night, and he's visited by one last ghost, the ghost of Cloud Future. A faceless, robed ghost. Scrooge attempts to stare into the void, finds nothing. The ghost takes him to the future, where he walks out to the cube area of his office. Scrooge looks around and says, where is everyone? Why isn't anybody here? What day is it? The ghost replies, Tuesday. Scrooge says, so where is everyone? Everybody should be here. They should be in their desks. We have things to do. The ghost replies, they're all gone. They left. You ran them off with all of the work that they had to do. They saw the writing on the wall. They saw nothing but endless weekend work. They saw that this was not going to change, that nothing was going to be any better. And they made decisions for themselves and they left. So now it's just you. That staff turnover took away whatever talent you did have, and now managing this is all on you. The ghost takes Scrooge into an executive meeting about modernizing applications, where he sees himself yell at the executive saying, we don't have time to do any of this. I can't keep up. I can't build these applications. I'm working myself to death right now. Scrooge says, where is everybody? Why can't I get any help? The ghost says, because no one wants to work here. They don't see any improvement. They don't see any growth. They just see maintenance. They just see the past. And they don't want to be here anymore. So it's left to you. That staff turnover took away one of your best people who now works across the street at a newer company that's building newer applications. He's much happier now. His weekends are free. His holidays are free. He has plenty of vacation time because he doesn't have to worry about whether or not the infrastructure is going to fall down. He just knows it's going to work. And when it doesn't, there's automation in place to help fix it. And even then, most of his infrastructure doesn't even live in the building, it lives in a cloud. So he doesn't have to worry about it. Klooch says, no, managing your own infrastructure is the best way forward. How can this be? What happens if I don't decide to work anymore? The business fails and goes completely bankrupt. It can't sustain itself anymore, and it's over. Klooch runs away in the dream, and he wakes up in a sweat and realizes that he has to change. And he wakes up a changed person with a changed outlook. And Klooch goes out and finds his coworkers and says, listen, I understand I've been a little hard on the whole infrastructure thing, but we're going to spend our time on automating this. I don't want to do weekend changes anymore. I don't want to do patching changes anymore. We're going to automate all of that so we can actually focus on the things that we want to go do. I want to focus our business on helping them modernize their platform. If we can get our time back by automating and by migrating our workloads to a cloud, I can escape this sort of the locks and chains that an on-premises infrastructure with all of its control would give me. He takes this business plan to the executives and says, I'm going to need some funding, but I think this is going to drive us forward. I want to help you get there. The business says, finally, some progress. And they approve a small staff expansion so that he can go out and hire the best and brightest workers he can and give them the capability to drive their business forward. Klooch finally gets out of the way and lets go of that control so that he can help his business move forward. Don't be a Klooch. At Expedient, we want to help you not be a Klooch. With our cloud assessments, we're able to help you sit down and figure out where is the best place for your workloads. We want your workloads to be and operate in the best manner possible, whether that's on our cloud or whether that's on other clouds. And with that, that gives us and you the capability to drive your business forward and get that time back. We want to bring the color back into your face. With our enterprise cloud, we're able to land not just a few VMs, but thousands of VMs and take away all of that maintenance work and all of that patching work that you were doing yourself and hand you back that time. You can buy new hardware, you can buy new software, but you can't buy time. And that's what we want to provide to you. And if your workload isn't right for our cloud on-ramps can help you land those on a hyperscale cloud so that you're able to drive new modern applications utilizing cloud platforms to the best and their most native capabilities. And with that, that is the end of our 2020 webinar series. I want to wish you all a very happy and safe holiday season. Wherever you may go, wherever you may be staying this year. I know this has been a topsy-turvy year. Thank you for joining us for all of these webinars. I appreciate that every week or every other week, we get a chance to talk and have some really great discussions and question and answer time around how we at Expedient can help you and what you're seeing in the field and how that helps drive us. If you want to get your hands on an enterprise cloud so that you don't be a Klooch yourself, please reach out to me at aj.kuftic@expedient.com or go to expedient.com/vmware-test-drive. And you can sign up for a 30-day free trial where you get 128 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of storage, and full portal, GUI, and API access to our environment so you can see how you can automate and bring your future forward. And with that, I'll open it up for questions with our Vice President of Pre-Sales Engineering, Rob McCafferty. Rob, how are you, sir?
I'm great. You already answered the first question on how does someone get a trial if that's what they're interested in. So
there you go. There's all the details you need right there.
Couple of things to kick it off. Let's see. one kind of more of a comment that I think kind of gets to that point, right? Someone made a comment that automation and modernization will help in this kind of working smarter mentality, but you do need to train staff, right? So I think that kind of gets right to the point of your presentation of get out of that mundane day-to-day hardware management, infrastructure management, and put your skills to use in a new modern technology and provide better value to your business.
Yeah, I see a couple questions here. One, I see it's more of a comment than a question because this is traditional webinar speaking engagement things, more of a comment than a question. But sometimes there's no substitute that you see for legacy apps that are considered vital for the business. And that's true. That happens in a lot of industries. Healthcare is a big one where manufacturing is another where they've spent a lot of money to implement this application, and getting off of it, refactoring, changing them is very difficult, which is actually one of the best and brightest capabilities of Expedient's Enterprise Cloud. If your workload's running on a VMware platform now, you can bring that into our environment. There's no refactoring, there's no change, and you get the cloud operating model and the cloud maintenance where we're managing all of the infrastructure for you, where your legacy apps can run the same way they do now, but you still get all the time back. So there's a balance and a trade-off. It's that balance between on-premises technologies and a hyperscale cloud that we think Expedient Enterprise Cloud fits into really, really well.
Yeah,
and death leaves only lifeless staff. That's true. Again, comment, not a question, but I agree.
Yeah, to add on to your point about applications, right? Given that we do have flexibility of different types of clouds for different types of applications, we are generally able to find and design a solution that will fit for most types of applications, whether it's databases or cloud native containers or legacy like AS400 AIXs. We kind of have a portfolio built around multiple types of clouds for multiple types of applications. That's our goal. It's definitely not a one cloud fits all mentality when we're looking to help our clients find a successful solution.
I see one here around when migrating to cloud, is there an Expedient support member available especially for legacy apps? All of our staff is 24/7. We have a fantastic delivery and support organization. Hello, delivery and OSC. They make up a large, if not a majority of our organization, funny enough. So from our standpoint, we're able to support a lot of legacy applications. But from a legacy app standpoint, if the way that it runs on VMware today is acceptable for you, it's the same way it runs in our cloud, right? We're just taking away a lot of that baseline infrastructure. You're still responsible for the general application. But when you work with us, our solutions architecture team on the front end, that's Rob McCafferty's organization, the pre-sales engineering, we'll sit down and actually go through your applications with you and say, hey, you've got this Oracle database. Maybe you have this specific application server with its specific requirements. We don't try to shove you into a t-shirt size. We take your workloads as they are because your workloads are what they are, right? Sometimes you're working with an external vendor that has very specific requirements, around what that needs to be, amount of RAM, amount of CPU, and you're able to bring those in exactly as they are. And we don't try to shove you into a specific size. So we don't have any particular one person who can help you with legacy apps. We have an entire team of people who can help you with those legacy apps.
One interesting kind of more common, hopefully we're not using SolarWinds to monitor. No, we're not. So.
Yeah, SolarWinds is having a very good or a very bad, no good time right now. So if you run SolarWinds, you should probably look into that. As a VMware cloud provider, is Cloud Foundation being leveraged or is it a la carte options for storage? So we built our Expedient Enterprise Cloud pre-Cloud Foundation. We are using the Cloud Foundation components, so vSAN, NSX, and ESXi, and vCenter, with VMware Cloud Director on top. So we do have a VMware Cloud Foundation based platform in a way, but it is not running specifically the Cloud Foundation full bill of materials. It gives us a little bit more flexibility when we run into issues. We don't have to wait for Cloud Foundation to put out a patch. We do a lot of the interop stuff ourselves because the interop isn't just between the VMware products. We offer our backup platform is Cohesity, our DR with VMware Cloud Director Availability and Zerto. We have a lot of different third-party things that need to connect into that cloud. So for us, having maximum flexibility when it comes to that is important. So
Yeah, right. And yeah, I think it's important to remember, right? Cloud Foundation isn't a thing, right? It's a validated design and deployment orchestration. As a cloud service provider, we have had a validated design for 15 years that has been validated and reviewed by VMware, and we continue to integrate the third parties into it, as AJ mentioned.
I see most of us are told to repurpose old machines due to cost and no funds for technology. It's so hard to sell this to upper admin. How do I sell this to them? So one of the challenges of that, in repurposing old machines, usually that turns into lab equipment, a test dev environment. Sometimes people will just resell the old hardware. When you start to move towards a cloud model, you start to move away from that CapEx. And a large reason that you're being told to repurpose an old machine is that buying new gear is expensive, right? You have to shell out $10,000 plus per host for the hardware, the licensing, and everything that goes along with that. And so shelling that out, instead of shelling that out, you take this old hardware and reuse it. With our cloud, we're capable of delivering per VM resources. So you're able to take your virtual machines and land them where they need to be and only pay for what you're using. So instead of it being this big, huge capital expenditure to get additional resources or extend the life of old resources, you're only really paying for the resources that you're using, and you can grow them when you need them to. So I think from an overall concept, this isn't just selling Expedient's enterprise cloud. This is selling any cloud, right? I think one of the big challenges is getting the business side of the org on board, your CIO, your CFO on board with how this changes the model overall financially. And instead of worrying about, okay, in 2 years, the support contract for this hardware is up, I got to replace it. This is you paying monthly for the same resources, but you're able to scale and meet the needs of the business where it is versus trying to plan ahead 3 years and hope for the best.
Yeah, a question around, what cloud platforms are supported and how do we integrate into public cloud? So, kind of the thought process that Expedient has is find the right cloud for the right workload, and kind of play that match game and put the right things in the right places, and then provide a comprehensive layer of service over top of all of those cloud providers. So if you have some workloads running at on-prem, some in Expedient, some in the public cloud, being able to provide you insight as to cost and compliance into those clouds, making sure that your workload hasn't changed and now you're seeing a lesser performance or a higher cost in a particular cloud, or if a particular workload has fallen out of compliance. And then providing you insight into the security of those workloads across clouds, so that you can set policy based on workload type. And no matter where you deploy that workload, that security profile will move with it. And then kind of lastly, giving you the ability to have data management across multiple clouds, a consistent and continuous replication as well as backups of all of that data. And then giving you the ability to provision new workloads through the Expedient portal as well, no matter which cloud you want to deploy that on, but giving you the advice and guidance before you do that, allow you to build a workload and understand what the cost, compliance, performance implications are of deploying that workload in multiple clouds before you click the button to actually do it.
I see here we got how well does Expedient integrate with on-prem servers using VMware and now Azure for 365? So when it comes to on-prem things, we have a number of different ways that we can work with on-prem servers, right? So sometimes there's a reason why you want to maintain an on-prem environment. Latency is usually the big one. Sometimes it's data transfers, or you have big old iron hardware like mainframes, HPUX, AIX that you don't want to physically move. What we can do is there's a couple different options. One is our on-site private cloud with DR as a service, where we land our pod in your data center. You get the same management from us. So we manage the platform, we patch it, we take care of it, but you have access to it and you manage your applications on top of that. And then it replicates back to our data center for DR purposes. We can also integrate your existing Zerto environment if you have that, and you can use and replicate that directly to us. You can bring your own licensing with that as well. And then from an Azure and 365 standpoint, we offer the ability to integrate with Azure AD from an identity standpoint. So we have a bunch of different integrations that we can have to utilize your existing tool set or utilize existing things that may actually still be working well for your business. That isn't hamstringing you like Ebenezer ran into, but you have the ability to put that together with our technology and managed services to be able to provide the best infrastructure overall. Is there a best practice method to determine what is the next generation to consider for our infrastructure? I think it comes down to what are you willing to maintain and how much time do you spend maintaining it? Three-tier architecture is fine. The three-tier architecture gets bagged on a lot because you have the two big hyperconverged manufacturers, VMware and Nutanix, pushing away those sorts of concepts, but there's sometimes where having a big storage array is actually a big benefit to you. Sometimes you just need a ton of storage. Sometimes you just need a ton of speed, and sometimes your workload doesn't grow as linearly as HCI would like you to. The other thing is maybe your workload, you have a big legacy platform, and migrating it, as we mentioned earlier, migrating it to a hyperscale cloud is not exactly the right fit for that workload. So it really comes down to it depends sort of situation. And that's why we started doing these cloud assessments. We want to help our customers understand where the right place to land their workload is and how we actually drive that forward. So I think that's another piece there. Rob, I see you got a couple here.
Yeah, just kind of briefly, right? The one question was around how do we get folks migrated into our platform or any cloud for that matter. So, variety of different methods and ways to do that. The key differentiator being that you don't just sign up for our services with your credit card and we send you an email with our best wishes, right? You are engaged with our implementation team, a project manager, system and network engineers to help guide you through that process to make sure that you're successful. Your success is our success. So making sure that we get your environment migrated correctly, efficiently, and that everything is working well is our top priority. And then kind of the second item that I had here was, do we help our prospects and clients with creating their business case, right? And AJ touched on the assessments a little bit ago. So we do offer those, as well as, through our solution architecture team, helping with TCOs and other things that are needed. So yes, absolutely.
There was another thing that's kind of down here. Is there a way to do a 10-year plan with you for this? That kind of plays into those assessments in that pre-sales aspect, the ability for people to get the things that they need, but actually have a conversation about it and engage and actually build a plan. And it's not just, here's a list of services, good luck. The ability to have an actual conversation and engagement to bring all of that through. There was another one. How do we handle disaster recovery across data centers in multiple countries? So this is where that on-site private cloud comes into play. We have the ability to put our cloud wherever it needs to be. There is we have a number of customers who have this on customer sites, so we can put our pods where they need to be and we can connect them with disaster recovery. We have a customer who uses us as production and they fail back their DR to themselves, their on-site data center, because they have concerns around connectivity. They live in a high natural disaster area, a lot of tornadoes in the area during the spring. So they want to be able to come back to their own environment in the event of a disaster, which is fine. So we can work with you on trying to figure out what is the best way to actually do that. We have the capability to replicate. As long as we can connect from point A to point B, we can do the replication. But diving into that and understanding, how far apart the data centers are and latencies is really important to finding out the real answer. But if we're talking about multi-country DCs, we can put our cloud anywhere in the world. High staff turnover and seeing the same position posted over and over on the board should be assigned to potential workers, but how do you change the current mindset of management to a cloud thinking? A lot of that comes back to helping the business understand your specific pain points. When you're, as a director, as a manager, going to your executive staff and saying, we're having trouble keeping talent. We're having trouble keeping up with all of the technology changes that are happening. I either need people or I need the ability to say we're moving forward on a more modern platform to get the people in that we need to be able to support this going forward. It can be very disheartening to your own people. And when your jobs are constantly out in the marketplace, it doesn't give anybody a really good feeling that you're going to hire them. Maybe that involves changing the job title. Maybe that involves changing the job description. Maybe that involves changing how you handle where you're placing workloads or where you're placing your priorities to try and get the business to understand that this is where you're moving forward, how you're moving forward, and how you can get the staff on board to be able to do that. That is the last question I see. The winner of the Ember Smart Mug is Daniel Garcia. Congratulations, Daniel. Karen will be reaching out to you here after the presentation is done. I want to thank you all for joining us on for the last webinar of 2020. We will be back early next year with more Q&As with industry leaders, with IT leaders in our world, and along with our own experts, product demos, more thought leadership, a bunch of new great webinar content coming, along with some of the roadmap that Rob kind of sort of mentioned. So we have a lot planned for 2021, and we hope to see you back here. Thanks, everyone.